Ever feel like you're missing the instruction manual when it comes to men and relationships?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the secret code to making things work?
Yeah.
Well, today we are diving into a book that claims to have some answers. And, get this, it's called The Queen's Code.
The Queen's Code.
You heard right. It's by Alison Armstrong, and it's basically generations of women in one family passing down their wisdom about, well, men.
Okay, generations of women studying men. That's got to be good. What's the angle here?
The really interesting thing about this book is that it kind of turns the tables. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, women have had it wrong this whole time.
Oh, I like where this is going. So it's not men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's more like, hey, ladies, we might be missing something here.
Exactly. It's like if you keep running into the same problem in your relationships, maybe it's time to look in the mirror, right? And this book introduces this really interesting concept called, get ready for it, frog farming.
Frog farming. Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
So the idea is that without even realizing it, women might actually be turning the princes in their lives into the frogs they complain about.
Okay, I've definitely been guilty of complaining about a frog or two, so I am all ears. Tell me more about this whole frog farming thing.
It's all about those unconscious patterns we have in relationships, the things we do without even realizing it, that can sabotage our own happiness.
Oh, I know those patterns. Like, if only he would just do fill in the blank, then everything would be perfect.
Yes. And the book is saying, hold on a second. What if we're actually contributing to those very behaviors that we're criticizing?
That's a powerful thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's perfect, but it's so easy to get stuck in that trap of thinking, if only he were more like this, or if only he wouldn't do that.
Right. The Queen's Code says a big part of this whole frog farming thing comes down to this idea of the perfect person. You know, that mental checklist we all have of what an ideal partner should be like.
Ah, yes. The perfect person trap. I think we've all been there at some point.
Oh, absolutely. And the book argues that this perfect person ideal can actually backfire. It creates this impossible standard that no one can live up to.
Which leads to...
Constant criticism, disappointment, resentment, you name it.
Exactly. Instead of creating this loving, supportive environment where you can both thrive, you end up, well, breeding frogs, basically.
It's like setting everyone up to fail before you even begin.
And it's important to remember, this book isn't about pointing fingers or blaming women. It's about recognizing that we all have these ingrained patterns and just like taking a look at how they might be impacting our relationships.
And this whole perfect person thing really hit home for me when I read this story in the book about this woman, Melissa.
Okay.
So she's stuck in this rut with her husband, Scott, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the same old complaints. He works late, doesn't help around the house as much as she'd like.
Right.
And she just ends up feeling resentful, like she's doing everything herself. Sound familiar?
Oh, tell me about it. I think most of us have been there at some point or another, right?
Totally. And the book uses her story as this perfect example of how this perfect person trap plays out in real life.
Because she's holding Scott up to this ideal.
Exactly. She's got this picture in her head, and it doesn't factor in their reality at all, you know, with his job and the kids and everything.
And all that comparison just breeds resentment.
Exactly. It's like a recipe for disaster.
It leaves both people feeling inadequate, right?
Yeah.
He feels like he can't measure up, and she feels...
Because she's not getting what she needs.
Exactly. It creates this disconnect where neither of them feels truly seen or appreciated. And the thing is, this whole dynamic, it's not about men versus women, you know. It's not a gender thing.
It's a human thing.
Exactly. We all crave that feeling of being seen and appreciated for who we are, flaws and all.
Okay, so how do we actually break free from this frog farming cycle? Because it sounds like that perfect person trap is a big part of it, right?
It's a huge part. And the book suggests, ready for this, we need to learn a new language.
A new language. Okay, I'm listening.
It's called The Language of Heroes.
The Language of Heroes. Okay, that sounds kind of intense. Tell me more.
Well, at its core, it's about really understanding the needs and desires that drive men in relationships.
Okay.
And then it's about learning to speak to those motivations in a way that, you know, strengthens the bond and helps both partners be their best selves.
Okay, so it's not about changing who they are. It's about understanding them bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it all starts with this idea of providing.
Providing. Okay, like bringing home the bacon.
That's part of it. But it's bigger than that. See, men are hardwired to create a positive impact, to provide in a way that makes a difference in the lives of the people they care about.
Interesting.
It's like this innate drive, to be a hero, to step up and make things better.
Okay, so I get that men want to provide, but how does that translate to, like, everyday life?
Well, the book gives this great example of this couple, Karen and Mike. So Karen is always on Mike's case about taking out the trash.
Okay, I know that story.
And then one day, he just does it without being asked.
Yeah.
She is over the moon. It's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, but why? It's just taking out the trash, right?
That's the thing. It's not about the trash, right? It's about what it represents. For Karen, it's a sign that Mike sees her, hears her, and cares enough to, like, lighten her load.
It's an act of love. And for him,
It's not about being a servant or like doing something he doesn't want to do. It's about feeling valued for what he brings to the table.
for being able to make a positive impact.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. See, men measure benefit differently than women do.
How so?
It's not always about the grand gestures or like obvious displays of affection. It's about understanding what truly matters to the person they're providing for and then taking action accordingly.
So the question is, are you unknowingly blocking a man's desire to provide in ways that matter to you?
That's a good question.
Like, are you dismissing those small acts of service because they don't fit your idea of what providing should look like?
That's something to think about.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that providing can look a lot of different ways.
It's about being open to receiving.
Yes. Even if it comes in a different package than what you were expecting.
This whole providing thing is, wow, it's really got me thinking. But the Queen's Code doesn't just talk about providing, right? There's this whole other side to it.
Right, the flip side. And it's a big one.
Emasculation. Okay, before you say anything, I know, it's a loaded word.
It is, but stick with me for a second, okay?
Okay.
Because it's not about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's about understanding what happens when we constantly shut down our partner's attempts to step up, even in small ways.
So it's not about the word itself, it's about the dynamic.
Exactly. And it's more common than we might think.
And it made me think of this other story in the book about, well, Karen again.
The one with Mike in the trash?
Yeah, her. So she has this total meltdown, right? But it's not because of something Mike did. It's because she realizes how much he actually cares.
Wow.
She's been so busy trying to do everything herself, be the perfect wife and all that, that she's been pushing him away without even meaning to.
Denying him the chance to actually show up for her.
Exactly. And that's what's so heartbreaking about this whole emasculation thing. It creates this lose-lose situation.
Where he feels useless and she feels unsupported.
Exactly. So how do we break that cycle? If emasculation is the problem, what's the solution?
It's all about receiving.
Receiving. Okay, so not doing everything ourselves, but how does that actually work?
It's about creating space for him to actually show up, to do things his way, even if it's not how you would do it.
Even if it means like gritting your teeth and biting your tongue while he figures it out?
Sometimes, yeah. Because think about it, when you step back and let him take the lead, even if it's messy or imperfect, it allows him to feel that sense of accomplishment.
Like he's contributing, like he's valued.
Exactly. And when he feels that, guess what? He wants to do it even more.
It's like this positive feedback loop. He feels appreciated, she feels supported, everyone wins.
Exactly.
Wow, okay, this language of heroes is powerful stuff. I feel like we've just scratched the surface here today.
Oh, we have. There's so much more to unpack.
But for now, for everyone listening, think about this. What if the key to a better relationship isn't about changing him, but about changing the way you interact? What if the frog you see is really just a prince waiting for the chance to shine? Go check out the Queen's Code and let us know what you think. Until next time.